We're live, Blair.
All right. Hi, George. It's so
Hi,
great to
hey,
be back
Blair.
with you again.
It's wonderful. It's always wonderful doing this kind of debate and thinking about the future of the world, what it's meant to be, who we're meant
Exactly.
to be as humanity. It's really beautiful. And today we got a big topic, right?
We do. I mean, everybody, you can't turn around without hearing about AI. That's what everybody wants to think about and hear about these days. And you had an idea to talk about AI in the context of what it might look like if we use a fiat construction or not. And I think that's a great topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's so interesting, and I think we want to get going with that. And I know you've got something to present there in terms of, but AI, for those of you who don't know, AI means artificial intelligence, just so you know. All right.
we won't we won't try to dive into the different technical things that are happening with AI. With do we have general intelligence or not, and different types of models? I read those things, but I am definitely not an expert on what's going on.
Yeah.
But I have been a light user of a little bit of ChatGPT and recently Claude. Um, and so I'm starting to get up to speed. I'm not quite a luddite with adoption of AI. So
Well, that's very good because there are a lot of people who are, particularly in the young generation, they're very concerned. But I
yeah,
think that's part of our conversation here is what are the promises? What does it look like? And what's the reality of it? And then how would it be if fiat were there? And so fiat, for those of you who don't know, means fiduciary in all things. And it means being a fiduciary, all of our institutions being fiduciary to the truth and to democracy, to people and the planet. So, Blair, are you ready to kind of roll with giving us a
yeah,
picture of AI? What does it look like?
absolutely. So I was envisioning what happens in a world of AI adoption where fiat is not the construction, where there are no guardrails in place. To think in terms of being a fiduciary in all things. And I actually had an interesting conversation with a researcher, Azish Falabi, at the American College for Financial Services in March. And she has been researching this topic from the perspective of the financial industry. How do we properly set up guardrails with our AI tools? And you can just think really simply if you think in the financial services industry, conflicts of interest already exist, and there are lots of rules and regulations and business models set up to try to minimize conflicts of interest or at least disclose conflicts of interest. And imagine if instead of simply human beings and sales reps that are responsible for misusing conflicts of interest, imagine now if you have the all powerful efficient machine that's allowed to push consumers of banks or insurance companies in one way or the other, and there are no ethical guardrails to stop basically those conflicts of interest from multiplying enormously. So, everything that we're used to talking about when it comes to financial services, and you can use any other industry probably as a model. What could go wrong? It could go wrong times exponential if you adopt AI without the right guardrails in place. And so I think that's very important. You spoke about negative externalities on a prior debate
Yeah.
that we had on capitalism versus fiat. And I've already seen some examples of negative externalities with AI. If you think about users maybe with mental illness, there was a sad story of an individual who took his own life after intense conversations with an AI. Um, this loss of the facts, the fact pattern, where how do we get ourselves back to the truth? And I think about this concept of slop that's being created for entertainment purposes by AI, and what sort of content will the algorithms that sent some of the people here today that the which is a good use of an algorithm, but how could the algorithms like put people into areas of consuming slop and non-truthful information? And then of course, there's the economics, right? It's pretty simple to see without a fiat construction, we will get more wealth and income disparity. All these profits will flow to the few, and all of the problems that could come along with that. And that's where we have the fear of job loss and what will happen with the future of the economy if AI is taking over jobs and profit seeking is the only motivation. And I think you'll probably do a better job than me of talking about how this might negatively impact freedom and democracy. But of course, if you have that concentration of wealth and power, loss of the truth, everything that I've talked about earlier, you have more risks to the future of democracy. So I think it's very important that in the adoption of AI, we have these ethical guardrails and we have the overarching concept of fiat in place to stop what could be a very um, murky dystopian type future with the adoption of
Yeah,
AI.
yeah, yeah. Well, fabulous. And it's such a large topic. I hardly know where to begin. I mean, you've introduced so many wonderful things here. But AI, I mean, AI is something where I think when we first heard of it, probably you probably felt the same way that I did. Was wow, this is amazing. We might be able to end disease and poverty, solve all the pollution problems that are out there, establish. I mean, the most amazing thing to me is that AI could easily, if we had proper standards, establish standards for truth in media and truth in communications by large institutions. And what an amazing thing that would be. And again, coming back to AI's potential to help us trust. But in fact, what happens, like the negative externalities, suddenly we see that only 18% of, I think this was an Axios study, only 18% of young people are hopeful about AI. I mean, that's just
Mm,
tiny, tiny percentage.
right.
And the majority of people now, it's just been coming out. This level has been growing and growing, but the majority of people right now feel that AI is moving too fast. But I think what's interesting, I mean, fiat would solve a lot of these problems because fiat is dedicated to making sure institutions put the truth and democracy and people on the planet ahead of their own self-concern. This is all institutions. And if you think about these negative externalities and you think about how they're working now with AI, but how they've worked in the past as well, is that our institutions have begun to fail us in a way that everybody can see, because suddenly we're one planet, we're one species. We might not feel that. We see all the antagonisms and all that, but we can see things and make decisions about the world as a species. That's never happened before. So, but what are people seeing instead of all the hopeful things? At least in America, this is much more so in America than in like a controlled media world like China or India, where the attitude toward AI is much more hopeful. But what we see, looking at we first have all this hope, but then as we watch, we see that billionaires have shifted up. I mean, Elon Musk has grown from what 100 billion to 852 billion, I think was the last number on Forbes. We see that the richest billionaires out there, um, Elon Musk, Larry Page, Zuckerberg, all of them are heavily into AI, and their wealth is growing at the same time that our wealth isn't, and that our concerns, our fears about losing jobs, as you mentioned, people are concerned that electricity prices are going to skyrocket because of this. Environmentalists are very concerned about environmental issues having to do with a lot with the use of water. So we see negative externalities come out, and soon after the hoax, the real hoax, it happens so quickly now because we are one Earth, one planet. It's all happening all at once. This is what happens as we go to scale. So the question is, how do we do this? Can we trust AI to, in fact, make the shifts? And it seems pretty obvious it'd be hard to do. Where are the guardrails? And do we have to build guardrails here? And then what is the next technology? Guardrails there, and guardrails, of course, with everything else that's challenged right now. The main thing that I will say, I've said this before, is that in America now we have 3 billionaires that own as much as 200 million people. And the issue is we think we're in a democracy, and it's really cool, Blair, that you and I can talk about this and other people can talk and debate. It is amazing about that. And we keep thinking that we have some power, but at the same time, we're aware that the real power is with those 3 billionaires or those 10 billionaires or those, 4,000, whatever they are. And so we're seeing that rather than the hopeful issues of solving medicine, providing us with an opportunity to maybe have guaranteed incomes. Those kinds of things could happen if this was done well. So I think the central issue, and maybe I'll toss it back to you on this. I think
Mhm.
the central issue, you can call it guardrails, or you can call it, do we have a system, overarching system, rooted also that humanity trusts, that not just you and I, but everybody trusts and goes, wow, this is such an amazing system. And now look what we're doing. We've got artificial intelligence to do all these wonderful things. How do we put that in place? That's what fiduciary in all things is all about.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that what we're talking about right now when we talk about AI for the most part are these large language models. And these are computer-based systems that have been trained on the knowledge that we already have. Right? So it's the knowledge that humans have already learned. It's just that the computers and the large language models are faster at reviewing a whole bunch of that information at once and coming up with answers. And then they call it this creativity factor, at times may hallucinate in order to creatively get to the end of the answer. And so the question is, first and foremost, who owns these language models? Where is the ownership? Will there be the opportunity for more or less, or will we have this consolidation of power on those models, where there'll be new models that are not language models? And I heard that now they're starting to work on video and more experiential ways of seeing the world than just consuming text-based information, and where will that go? But I think it is important to start with the right governance structures in place to make sure, because really what we would just end up doing if we don't change course is exacerbating all of the problems that we can already see in the world. That's not without a fiat adoption, right? More
Yeah,
consolidation of wealth, more consolidation of power, less distribution of the truth, less thinking about the whole of humanity instead of all individuals for themselves. But I get more excited, honestly, thinking about how the future could be positive. But it is interesting to remember that we are using a technology only to build upon what we've already created. It's still, and then maybe that is the positive message, is it's still going to require human ingenuity to take it to the next level. And one of the things that I hear about a lot, and you hearkened on it with young people being not positive about the future. I talk to a lot of parents of young people who are either in college, recently graduated college, or even those that are in junior high and high school, who say, I'm concerned about what jobs will be available to them and what that will look like. And I think that, all of the proper systems and guardrails, now is the time. Now is really the time to get out ahead of it. Because once you unleash an exponential power type technology and go in the wrong direction, it could be hard to correct. On the flip side, though, that technology might be the one that provides us the solutions that we're looking for. I think about the energy use of the AI data centers themselves. Perhaps we will be able to use AI to figure out what ways we can use energy and resources more effectively. But it's going to take the will of, I guess, the few in power today who want to sort of turn that inside out and make sure that all of the benefits will flow across the economy, across different, people of all income levels. That's going to take a massive effort or willingness, I think. And I think that's why a lot of people share that sort of negative view on it, because the way things are going, we're not changing course, AI or not. What are your
right.
thoughts?
Well, no, I'm totally with you. And again, I'm an optimist generally, and I'm excited about the possibility. But there's a way in which I hate to share that with my college age kids because they've told me, Dad, you're using AI there. Get out of it. I mean, it's like they're that antagonistic toward it. It's really
Wow.
quite something to see, and you realize that you're out of touch. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, was just booed time and again at a commencement speech in at the University of Arizona every time he brought up AI and how AI was going to help.
Very
And
interesting.
so this notion that I mean, we are one planet, we are one people, really, one species, and we're all getting information, and we're seeing not all the benefits, but we're seeing the power accumulating. I mean, we've got in America, we have a cabinet of billionaires. You know, it's no longer kind of a cabinet of Democrats. It's a democracy. It's a cabinet of billionaires. And so the question that I come up with, because as you know, I'm very concerned about the truth. I feel that if we use AI and use our handheld devices to tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that humanity can make some amazing decisions. And wouldn't that be
Exactly.
wonderful? AI could actually make that happen because we can define, statistically ranges of truth, and that could be something that is just simply part of what AI does in terms of information shared by large institutions. It's a piece of cake that can do that. But what we're seeing quite clearly is we're seeing more and more reports about what the billionaires think, and it really is the billionaires' world. And someone's about to become a trillionaire. It's like, whoa! And the media, the top three people in the media or families in the media, are all in the top six of either AI moguls or richest billionaires in the world. So that threat to actually have, the potential is to learn the truth and to be able to speak with each other in a respectful, loving, kind way. We'll always disagree, but to be able to have a respectful conversation. And instead, we're speaking just to a few people who are getting to choose what that media might look like, what we receive. So I think the disaffection that the young are feeling is something that we're all beginning to feel.
Mm.
And Fiat would close that door immediately. It would say, I mean, what it delivers is a system where all institutions are trustworthy and humane. They're required to be that. That means the CEOs are, the board is, but the whole system is an
Hmm.
amazing thing that would happen. So why? Here's another question I'll toss out to you that you and I can think of as financial advisors. Why why did we invest in AI rather than fiat? Why didn't we invest in fiat?
Yeah, that's such a really tough existential question because you and I understand all of the benefits that can come from starting with fiat. In fact, you know, I work in a business model that is a fiduciary, I have a fiduciary standard as a registered investment advisor,
Right.
overseen by the SEC. And guess what? That can be an extremely successful business model because at the end of the day, people want to know my advisor is thinking about this from the perspective of my plan, my goals, my objectives, and there's nobody in the background pulling the strings saying, "Hey, wait, but you know what? That product is a little bit will get us a little more profit." And
Mm,
you can grow incredibly from simply operating on that model of, look, we want to put the interest of our clients before ourselves. And I think of it like turning the whole economy inside out. To do that would be so beneficial. Of course, there are interests set up that would be against, and people don't like change, and it's very difficult, and you have to restructure. So I think investing in fiat, it's very interesting. I don't know that there requires any investment of money. It's investment of time and effort.
right.
And the system that we have is you take the profits from the company, you reinvest it in the thing that's going to give you the more profits, and you
Right.
continue on. So I don't know how you sort of like, you know, pop the dog on the nose and say, "Hey, pay attention," or
Right.
whatever it is, like, "Stop, think." This could actually get even better in the future if we were to turn it on its head. But I'm thinking of the truth in AI. Deepfakes are
Oh,
very
yeah.
popular now.
Oh,
There was a
yeah.
story. about a JP Morgan banker who accused, it was a man accusing his senior advisor, who was a woman, of sexual harassment that turned out to not have any factual basis. And the thing going around the internet this week were deep fake photos of the two of them as a couple together. And, I think, but a good example of how that can be easily discharged, even Elon Musk's Grok AI, which is connected to X, the former Twitter, will call out photos that are, this is a real photo, but it's not the photo of what they're speaking about, or this has been debunked. And you can see how easily you could get to the truth. It doesn't take investment of dollars, though. It takes investment of effort and intention. And I
Right.
think that's where we have to get to a point with fiat where enough people understand the benefits of it to just stop and move the other direction.
Yeah, and one of my objectives with fiat, I mean, there have been similar efforts in conscious capitalism and B corporations where they're attempting to put people and planet on the equivalent level of profit. But they're voluntary, and so people will virtue signal, yeah, 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 I'm in this, and then they'll pull out.
Mm,
There are a lot of rules and regulations there, and I think it just should be something that everybody in the world understands that all of our institutions are required to be truthful, putting democracy and people on the planet ahead of their own self-concern. It's an easy enough thing to do. It's just shifting one model that's strictly profit for another model that says, yes, but you don't do profit at the expense of humanity. It's
right.
very simple. It's not that complex. And one of the benefits of that is now here we're looking at it, we're getting kind of terrified by the billionaires' wealth, and they're creating a kind of an image of being villains in some way, not heroes, but villains. And if you have a model that where all of the leaders put the truth and democracy, people on the planet, ahead of their own self-concern, we will once again feel that humanity has heroes and that humanity as a whole, I mean, where are we going with humanity? Are we just chasing the latest technology that is investable by the billionaire elite, or are we going somewhere that talks about us as a species, about our depth, about our wisdom, about our compassion, about all of us communicating with each other? When are we going to leverage that ability? And artificial intelligence has the ability to leverage that ability, but it won't happen in a healthy way if we aren't in a system where people feel they can trust
Mm,
the system around them, both the government, the corporations, even nonprofits. You have all these semi-nonprofits that are political PACs that are just routes for big corporate money or billionaire money to go to politicians. So these are things that AI could solve.
yep.
But if fiat were already the law of the land, we'd already be there. Um, we'd feel trust in AI. We'd feel excited about what it's delivering.
Yeah. I think of the pictures of the recent Artemis moon mission and the pictures of the earth behind the moon and the sliver of the earth. I never thought about the earth might be a crescent too sometimes if you're viewing it from the
Beautiful.
moon,
Yeah.
and just how awe-inspiring that was. So I think it's so easy because in these technological algorithms that we are using to gather information, that's the other thing about fiat and AI. On the consumer level, the AI wants you to stay using the tool so that you use more compute power, so that you pay more to get more. And so it's the same thing with social media, where it's pulling us down these rabbit holes of things that anger us because anger keeps people engaged more. And there's a lot of studies on that. So with AI, figuring out how to not incentivize those programs to keep us engaged down the wrong path, and to have those like trigger symbols. Like I think about that poor individual who took his own life after falling in love with his AI. There's so many opportunities for that to switch the other way, and sort of a kill switch on like, don't allow this to happen, and potentially even help that person get into the proper treatment instead. That could have been a life-saving mechanism, and so I think we're just on the precipice of figuring out how do you get the people in place to turn the situation on its head and think about how do we make all of this technology a force for good, not just a force for profit. And hopefully getting the word out and having more people be interested in this, the movement will grow, as you say, one by one, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, we think of just a couple more thoughts. When we think of profitability, for a long time we thought about our intelligence and our brilliance. And there was a study I was just told about today. I haven't researched it, but I'm sure it's out there from Google that where they were looking at an environment, a team environment of safety, of relatively normal people, and then a team environment of absolutely the most brilliant people working together. And what they found was the environment where there was safety was the environment where the most creative, entrepreneurial new ideas came out. And it echoes the when I asked the question about which is really worth feeling. How would you feel if every institution you encountered throughout your life was trustworthy and humane? Every one of them in every encounter. How would it feel to you, and how would your life change? And I ask that in large audiences, and I get them to slow down and park the cynicism, throw the skepticism away, and just feel it, feel what the difference is. And everywhere that I have asked that question, people, of course, talk about comfort, feeling safe, feeling at ease. And those are wonderful things in a world where trust is really fractured. Wonderful things. And then what begins to percolate out of that is I'd be a lot more creative. I'd be entrepreneurial. I'd take risks that I wouldn't otherwise take because
Mm,
I know that the system is honest, honorable, has respects my dignity and all of that. So the possibility for growth in ways that we don't understand, that we've been measuring growth just in dollar terms, in currency terms, but there are possibilities of growth, obviously, that, in terms of human growth, growth of wisdom, growth of kindness, growth of emotional intelligence. There are all these other kinds of growth that um, if people felt safe and comfortable, that was the other point I wanted to make. They'd be going after. The other point I want to make is your point about anger driving things.
mhm.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if instead we felt comfortable, if we felt trust, if we felt compassion, if those were the virtues that were coming up? Anger is certainly not a virtue, except in very fierce circumstances, warlike circumstances. So we're
Right.
stimulating the wrong things. Fiat will put that in place and give us a ground where we won't have to worry not only about AI, but what's the next AI coming up next and the one
Right.
after that. Yeah.
I totally agree. And I've done that exercise because you've asked me to about envisioning a world where you could trust all institutions. And I just think of all the time that is wasted trying to figure out if you should buy this or if you should sign this agreement or if you should vote for this candidate, how much less time and energy would be put on trying to protect ourselves from the things we don't trust if we just knew, look, nobody's going to be perfect, but at least we know they're all agreeing to this principle that we put the best interest of others before ourselves in fiat. um, what we would use, what we could accomplish with all of that time we are wasting verifying that we can trust our government, the companies, nonprofits, school system, all of that. Wow, that would be a huge redirection of human. And look at what humanity has. We have to be positive. Look at what humanity has
Oh, yeah.
accomplished
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
far. We could accomplish so much more, and I think that's the positive message of fiat is that we could just supercharge all of these things if we
Yeah.
would adopt a fiat standard.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful, beautiful. And as you were saying that about trust, just one more dark place, and then I totally agree with you about the positive, and that is that there are these studies now that are kind of psychological studies of nations. And so, who's the most neurotic nation? Who's the most narcissistic nation? And who's the kindest nation? The place where the U.S. soars above all other countries right now is that we are the nation where not only we don't trust our institutions, we don't trust each other. We don't trust our neighbors.
Yeah.
If we had a system where we felt trust is embedded in all of this, we'd be able to talk to each other. we'd be able to give hugs to each other in ways that we haven't been able to. And what an amazing, I mean, collaboration is we know that it's as important as competition when we're
Right.
building a great society. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wonderful to talk, Blair. Any final note? I think I want to see all that optimism happening with AI and come if you're interested in fiat, go to the website fiduciaryinallthings.com.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, it's a movement. I hope it grows. I hope it catches on, catches fire, because it really is a positive message that could take us to a new place. And I think this concept to me now of supercharging all of the great things that we've accomplished so far and taking it to the next level. I think we got to help people get out of sort of the negative space
yeah.
and move towards the positive. I think that would be a huge benefit for
Amazing,
everybody going forward.
amazing,
Yep.
amazing. Well, beautiful, wonderful to be with you. I
You
look forward
too.
to the next one. I don't know when or what, but I know we'll do another one. This was great. Thank you, Blair.
Absolutely. Thank you, George. Great to see you. We'll talk
Great,
soon.
great to see
Bye,
you. Bye
everybody.
bye. Bye.